Welcome to the Rebel Rebel. I'm your host, Michael Dargie. The Rebel Rebel is a show dedicated to creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. It's a love letter to those people who think audaciously and act courageously in service of making the world a better and more interesting place.
Earlier in my career, it's like you get the client who's freaking out because they're stepping into visibility with a business, they're a startup, whatever. They're probably time poor and they want to make a larger impact. You know, I'm not one of those like butterfly extroverted people that...
In this episode of the Rebel Rebel, I'm excited to introduce you to the exceptionally talented Adele Wiejaczka, founder of Live Large Design. Adele blends creativity with a nomadic spirit, leading a groundbreaking creative agency from the road. No kidding. Not only will you get a glimpse of running a world-class business from the road, but you'll also learn incredible tips and tricks for how to take your brand to the next level. Welcome to the show. You've got this amazing creative agency called Live Large Design. And you're nomadic, you're on the road, you're doing cool stuff. Please take a minute and just sort of catch us up with who you are, where you are, and what you're up to.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm physically in Winter Park.
Again.
Yeah. I'm physically in Winter Park, Colorado, so up in the mountains. And I've had my agency for about 12 years. It's gone through like a million different iterations, but it's probably the most, stable part of my life, just meaning it's been consistent and it's really my passion, I can never imagine like selling it or even getting out of it just because it's so close to who I am as a person.
Wow. Well, and so tell me about being a creative agency. Like, first of all, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the iterations I've been through have definitely the typical designer journey. I have a master's in fine art and design, but of course in school, they don't teach you anything about business. So that was on me to learn. So I went through, that freelance into like starting to hire contractors, into evolving into an agency. And what I've found is like collaboration is my jam. So I love having a design team. I love being a creative director. And I'm quite good at that. Like, from the feedback I've gotten from especially my design team, who tend to be women, which is interesting.
Yeah.
They just really enjoy the environment that I create, for us to be able to do work together. So I've really, really loved that. And I think that's what keeps me, driving with the agency model. There's been different iterations of like, what our services have been. I would say that we've always been focused on branding and websites, but I niched in e-learning about 6 years ago, which has been incredibly fun and really maximizes my skill set, I believe. So.
Oh, amazing. Well, I have to say, I love your website.
Thank you so much.
I love it. Yeah. It's got just the right amount of copy. It's got the right amount of fun. It's definitely, you could tell somebody who knows design has designed it, which is a nice change.
Yeah. Thank you.
So it's really great. How is it that you run an agency when you're nomadic? Because let me preface this by saying, how is that giant glass, penthouse suite that you work out of?
Yeah.
What is that like for you?
Sometimes I get to work at those when I'm at a co-work space or a fancy hotel.
Yeah.
I get to, work out of my truck rig. So I've just inherently been rather nomadic in this life, probably before we really knew that word or it was very cool. And so I think I've just gotten used to, being pretty minimal. And then especially the years I spent internationally, about 5 years traveling. And I had a suitcase and then, one bag that was my office. And kind of my promise to myself was just remaining minimalistic. It really frees up like your world, your mind, your life to be able to focus, in my opinion, on like more interesting things like creative work or relationships or nature. So I don't find it particularly hard. I think you have to create systems and then you have to leave room for those systems. So it was, it's like 30 degrees here right now. And we're in my truck rig last night and I actually had some deadlines. So I worked pretty late. So I have a pretty nice like solar battery setup. The batteries are heated and it's just really fun. So I enjoy it. There's something about having like all your stuff contained to like a truck and you just feel kind of invincible.
That's amazing. And you've got a companion with you, a
Yeah.
little fur baby?
Yeah, my pup Naiku. So he's, I guess, a year and a half. I got the rig and him at the same time, and I'm like, you better get along. So
Oh, that's amazing. So he likes traveling too?
yeah, I mean, he has to, but yeah, he's been amazing. We road tripped, I
Wow.
think, like 12 hours after I got him. Just a little pup, and
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Oh,
he loves it.
that's amazing. So he's a little pitty.
Yep, pit mix,
The-
so quite little for a pitty, but has all the emotional connective sides, which I love. Yeah.
Oh,
hmm
yeah, it's amazing. And at 30 degrees, he's got to be wearing jackets, I would imagine.
Yeah. I could have chose a dog maybe with a little more fur for my love of winter. So he definitely insists on being under the covers in the rig. It's pretty cute, actually. We have our little system, and if he falls, if the covers fall off of him, he wakes me up to let him back under. It's hilarious.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Oh, that's adorable. So just to maybe shape this a little bit more, is you are nomadic, like your business, it doesn't have a building. You do, have co-working spaces that you drop into, but
Yeah.
you basically run everything out of this truck rig.
Yeah. And then I'll come into the co-work spaces. I take full advantage of electricity, water, bathrooms when they're available.
Yeah.
So that's fun. I have like a mobile charger too. So I have a couple, redundancies in place. And I'd say, I'm not in the backcountry for like a whole week, I wouldn't say, but I will stay out for a couple days, which is really nice. And I think helps inform my creative work if I just want to kind of stay in a project. I can just take the dog for a walk, and he free runs. He loves that. And so it's just pretty fun for us. Yeah. But I mean,
that's so great.
I guess I've had a remote business before COVID kind of normalized it. I don't know if that's the right way to say that, but so I started my business in 2011, and it was always remote. So pretty interesting.
Wow.
Of course, initially it was a little more place-based, and I worked with a lot of Alaskan nonprofits, and that was really cool because it's a large place, but a small community. So you can get to know people, you can get referred a lot. So I was really fortunate to, start building on my entrepreneurial experience. And then when I started traveling internationally, I discovered co-work spaces, and, where I'm from, like, you don't like, I don't know, if you go to the beach, people think you're on vacation. So there was a little bit of like a mind shift to like teach people, my clients, people in my world that, even if I was at the beach, I was, 5 minutes away from my co-work space still working.
What's the name of the co-work space?
It's called Gravity House.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they have a network in kind of the mountain towns here in Colorado. They're quite cool. And then they have like amenities as well. So like a house quiver with gear and like a sauna, all of them have different things. So
that's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of nice.
A friend of mine did, like he was in Bali and he was with Outpost, I think.
Oh,
so
yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh, far out. Yeah, I guess it's a small world.
It is a small world.
Nomads.
Yep.
Digital nomads.
Yeah.
So bring me back up. So you're nomadic. You're doing the thing. You've got these distributed teams. This is before COVID made it cool.
Yep.
So I guess what's the plan? Is just do this?
Yeah. So I've had a lot of iterations of the agency. Actually, I used to have a server hosting websites. I inherited that from, a Northern Alaskan company. She like mentored me into that in my early career. And then it became very stressful, and someone hacked it during COVID, and I lost money. It was really interesting. So I definitely took some time, that first COVID year to look at my goals and my profitability and be like, where do I want to go with all of this? So I actually downsized after that, kept everything really, really lean. And I've kind of built it back up over the past, 5 years, niched a little more specifically in e-learning, which really brings together like my branding skill sets, my web building, and then beefed up a lot of my skill sets with like marketing, copywriting, and funnel building and newsletters and kind of the whole shebang. So that I could offer like a more comprehensive product. So now I get to work with clients in a little bit longer timeframes, and I'm just really excited to be able to do a lot more for them. So for me, it's not super fulfilling to be like, well, okay, I'll do your business card or I'll do your website and like wait for you to write the copy. It's like, just the way that I am, I want to kind of be involved in the whole process, not in like a dictator way, but like,
but then you have some creative skin in the game where, you can have some Adele influence.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Like, we can start to get a sense of the flavor in there.
Yeah, totally. So I think my favorite thing to like call myself as a creative director, because I really like to look at, the future facing goals of a business, work backwards, and then, implement today. So we're on that track. And I have numerous brands that have been around for more than a decade that I created, which I'm really freaking proud of.
Oh, that is amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Well, I mean, you can, I think everything will be in the show notes, but you'll see, listeners, when you go check out, livelargedesign.com, like it stands out. It's one of those ones where you're just like, yeah, it's what it should be. And, the brands that you support, I'm sure, are just the same way. Like it's, you can see, and I'm not just shilling for Live Large Design. I'm really taken by it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been incredible. And I think any artist, creative, it takes time to really come into your own, in what you do, especially selling that. So it's fun to be in this part of my career where, not in an arrogant way, but I know I'm good at what I do. And I know I can solve whatever problem creatively is before me. And that confidence, I think, carries through like some of the ebbs and flows and the experiences. And, earlier in my career, it's like you get the client who's freaking out because they're stepping into visibility with a business, they're a startup, whatever, and you have to learn how to manage that. And now, I have this container they can come into and I can carry them through a process. And I think that creates, a safety and a momentum through, the experience my clients go through. So.
Oh, that is so good. Oh, okay. So what happens next? What's the next version of Live Large Design? I mean, I know that you've got some training coming up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been doing done for you services for 12 years, which is awesome. But I was like, how can I reach more people? And like, I really want to teach people how to fish, so to say, like when you look at the marketing world, because ultimately you're going to know what you do the best. You're going to know your clientele so well. So, I mean, when you hire out to a marketing agency, which of course design is always typically in the marketing umbrella, I have to learn your audience. I take a lot of time to do that. But I think it, could be very fruitful for my clients to actually be able to learn how to build some of these aspects themselves so that they're not always having to come back to a designer. So what I've done is taken my, over a decade of experience, my process that I do with my done for you clients, and I've created a done with you.
Let's love it.
6-month container where we come in, you get all of the tools that you need, even if you're not techie. That's the important part. And we have so many like amazing tools now, which I love being like alive in this, time period because there's so many useful things so that like someone like me can stay in the creative side of things, or an entrepreneur can stay serving their clients in the way that they want to, not bogged down with some of these like, painful, if any of y'all have made like your own DIY WordPress site or whatever, it can be really painful, right? It's just not working out and it doesn't transfer to mobile. So I've really put aside a lot of those issues. And now we just get to focus on the funnels and the brand. So my promise in my group program is you'll walk away with a covetable luxe brand, I call it, and marketing funnels for your signature program. So it's for seasoned entrepreneurs who, are already monetizing, already have familiarity with their audience, but they're looking, to go beyond that one-to-one, probably because they're booked out. They're probably time poor and they want to make a larger impact. So all of my clients are super excited about doing good in the world. But they're not like this, like DIY, like they want it to look good. So a lot, like I have doctors, I have like, all sorts of professionals that like, are my clientele, and they want to be able to go to their academic things or their circles and be proud of their platform.
Yeah, totally. So I guess, and maybe this is getting into the weeds too much, but do you have your own platform? Do you do WordPress? Do you do like something like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So I've embraced no code. I use Kajabi. That's what my clients use. And I do walk my talk there.
Okay, no code.
So yeah, the no code platforms have really served my people, the artists, the creatives, because I can go in and I actually can test the visuals that I'm making. And I think a lot of designers are like this, where we want to like tweak things. We want to play with them. I want to see it on the mobile. I'm so visual. So I do walk my talk. I use Kajabi fully because I always want to be able to experience what my clients are. And I also want to showcase that we can do what we need within that platform. So yeah, and I'm not saying that's the only platform to be able to do this in, but I am excited about the all-in-one because you can scale to a particular level, without trying to like Zapier in all these different tools.
That is so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it's simplifying. It's simplifying, which is really nice.
Yeah, and I would imagine a lot lighter than the big bloat, the WordPress bloat. That you have to drag around everywhere.
Oh my gosh, I just did a WordPress site for a client, and we always call it the WordPress Frankenstein because all these plugins have been added in, and depending on which developers worked on it, they're great, but there's 100 different ways to do things. So it just becomes less and less fun over time.
Yeah, that is just, oh my gosh. All right. So what sort of, again, you don't have to answer this. You don't want to, because it's a weird question to ask in an interview, but are you like a lamp stack person? Like, are you like a Linux server base? Are you Windows server base? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, Kajabi is going to host your site for you. So all you have to do is buy your domain and host. It's super simple. Yeah. And they have a CDN set up. So not to make this into like a pro Kajabi situation, but we can put in the show notes. I do have a 30-day trial if anybody wants to try it, which is kind of fun. But yeah, you can get in there. And so in terms of like out of box, you can get started really quickly. I think some of the limitations or challenges people face is just utilizing the platform to the fullest degree. So a lot of people who DIY, or my clients that come to me for done for you services, they're not utilizing it to the fullest extent, or they're still using these outside things. So I try to clean that up for them.
Gotcha.
So we can keep it all streamlined.
Oh, okay. So is it, and again, maybe I'll cut this out because I'm just curious myself right now. Is it kind of like like a Wix? Is that what you mean by no code? Kind of like those things? Is that what Kajabi is?
Yeah, I never recommend Wix, which sounds horrible.
No,
but,
God, no.
Yeah. So you don't have to touch code with a page builder like Kajabi. Obviously, there's other things in there, but from the front end side of it, I actually wrote a blog post about this, kind of weighing the different, e-learning platforms you can utilize, from the, newsletter to front end website to back end course delivery. It's my favorite. And part of that's going to be like hacking the visuals. So a developer is going to be annoyed by Kajabi because like there's only so much you can do. With WordPress, you can do anything, but there's other challenges, right? So I live within, I can do this to the 80% that I want with, 50% less headache.
Okay. I love it. Love it. And I guess I forgot that Kajabi is like a online learning platform. Is it, have you used like a Thinkific or like a Teachable, that kind of thing? It's
comparable to those. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. And there's kind of benefits of all. I have a couple weird things for myself, and I think my clients feel similarly. Like, I don't want to pay anybody else 3%, or, obviously I have to do that with Stripe, but some of those take, some of your sales, which I'm like, I work hard for bringing in the sales that I have.
Totally.
And then some of them focus a lot on the course delivery. So the back end, a lot to do with my work right now is about the front end. And I mean, your course is only good if we get people into it. So
for sure.
For me, the marketing side of it is really important.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I love this. It's so great. So where can people go to take this course of yours?
Yeah. So I am running a masterclass starting this weekend. I'll be running a few iterations of it. So I'd love to invite anybody to come. It's of course free, but I'll give you, the blueprint of your next 100K is my promise. Cause at some point you hit that ceiling of how much you can expand. as an entrepreneur with one-to-one work. So how do we package that really ethically is the word I like to use, in a way that people are getting solid results, but you're freeing up your time. And the reason I named Live Large Design is because our businesses should be serving the lifestyles that we want to live. And I'm not saying, for our work week, like I like working,
Totally.
but I'm saying I already went to art school. I don't need to sleep with the computer all the time. I still have to do that sometimes.
Awesome. How did you, what happened with you when you were young that sort of led you down this path?
Yeah, that's a great question. I grew up creating because of my dad. He's an artist and he's actually never made money from art, which is fascinating. He's extremely, extremely talented, but I think he's part of that kind of, starving artist sort of theology. And I do get it because art is so sacred to our souls, I believe, if we want to get weird about it. But I really appreciate how my parents highlighted creating for us, whatever we wanted to create. But they're like, anything you make is better than what you buy. And they just instilled that in us, and we grew up in Northern Michigan. And once a year we go down to see my uncle in Chicago, and we go to U-Track, the art store, if y'all know it. And we could get whatever we wanted. So, especially back then, my family was pretty modest, financially. But, my dad would buy me the biggest pack of Prisma colored pencils.
Prisma's the best.
Yeah. So that was just really special. And I would stay up late. I think that was my introverted time away from my family. And I'd stay up making stuff. And so I made books. In second grade, I made my first book. And so I have a small book publishing company as well, because I love the concept of designing books,
What?
I know it's kind of boutique, but I had clients who are writing books and I was like, cool, let's publish them.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, really books are a great business card. If you're looking to be a leader in your industry, a book is a great way to kick that off, especially as a speaker.
Amazing. Were you always a design maven, or did you do other things? Did you want to be something else, I guess, is the question I'm driving at.
I mean, if I'm honest with you, so I have a master's in fine art, which is a 6-figure degree and 4 years of your life, and a lot of pain. And I think until honestly, this year, I have not used the word artist to describe myself. So that's why I was excited to do this podcast. And, when you're a designer, you're always behind someone else's brand, and you're always perpetuating, their mission, which is beautiful. I love doing that. But I think it can, create, it can stunt, me being the leader of my own mission as well, and what I want to say in the world. So, as a kid, I didn't relate to it at all because I was crap. My dad's amazing. He wasn't always a great teacher of how to draw something, or he'd give us a clump of clay. And I'm like, this doesn't look like a dog. I don't know how to do it. And we didn't have the internet to Google, So I just felt like I was crap. And then I went to art school, so that made it worse. And
oh, no.
I know it's honestly been through my entrepreneurial journey that I think I've grown in not just my confidence, but my knowing of my ability to create. And somewhere in there, I was clear that creating was a big part of who I am. I'm pretty big on experience as well. And my undergrad is actually in environmental education. So I did a lot of wilderness guiding in my 20s. It was all I'm pretty kinesthetic. So that was a nice way to be in the outdoors and experience that. So it's been a lovely, weird, windy career path.
Amazing. And how long did you live in Alaska for?
Yes, I was there a decade. I was up north 6 years, running dogs, and then moved to Anchorage, which was a really cool lifestyle as well. Never planned on leaving.
So let's rewind and unpack that a little bit. So you said you lived there running dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Explain to me what you mean by that.
For sure. So for some reason, when I was, I think 3, I declared I wanted to move to Alaska and run sled dogs. And we're still not really sure where I heard about it, like how this came about. And I felt quite bad for my parents because they grew up in Detroit, moved us up north. We had such a cooler, upbringing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm getting the heck out of here. And so I was obsessed. I mean, my whole life growing up was like daydreaming about my Alaskan life. And and I pretty much, I guess, built the skills to be able to go do that.
What the hell?
Super
that
random.
Such a random thing.
Yeah, I know.
Did they still run the Iditarod?
Yeah, in Alaska.
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
Like the dog sled because the
the race they run. Yep,
Balto and
Togo. Yeah,
Togo and like wow. And so you used to do that.
Yeah, so I never ran the Iditarod, just to be transparent, but that was kind of my intention. Yeah. Got into racing with one of the bigger, like racing families in Alaska, and it's an interesting sport because you breed the dogs. You have to like choose your dogs, and you train the dogs, and you race, and then it's about you as a human too, and like how much sleep can you go without. So I mean, it's a fascinating sport. So. Wow. A lot of the families that have been around for a while, they have like the best lineage of dogs, and you can learn a lot from them. So I, got to work for one of them for a while, and that was really awesome to learn. But then I ended up working mostly tours in northern Alaska, which was incredible. Sure. You can bring a box of wine and some steaks and whiskey for the trail. You got to travel really light if you're racing. So part of what I think bridges my creative work and my guiding years is I really enjoy taking people into environments that they're uncomfortable with. And so that might be, taking a new business owner through a branding process and helping them be visible online. Or it might be taking you to Alaska and 40 below zero. And I'm like, we're going to survive this. Like, and it's going to be fun.
And I was going to ask like how, because there has to be a bridge between the, running dogs and creative agency. And I think that what you just explained is just so cool. Of course there's the connection.
Yeah, it's really fun to sit in, that I used the word knowing earlier, but like, I'm like, I got you, I got you. We're going to get to this, remote lodge, like, and you can see people's, I don't know if the word is fear or trepidation. So I do believe I've become hypervigilant in sensing people. And I mean, I'll think about a client and I'm like, oh, I gotta, send something over. Like they'll come up in my mind or whatever. Yeah. Literally like the email's waiting for me or vice versa. They're like, you sent that and I was thinking about you. So you start to learn people. And I think guiding really supported me in my ability to do that for sure.
Wow. What is the, so you're sorry, did you say you're Montana? Where are you right now?
Oh, I'm in Colorado.
Oh, Colorado. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in Colorado.
Yeah.
It's 30 degrees. I have no idea what that is in Celsius.
Oh,
Sounds cold.
I won't embarrass myself by trying to translate. It's been a little while.
That's fine. I just know that 30 is cold. Like that's going to be cold. That's going to be, so you're walking down the street, you and your little pupper. Your puppy's got a coat on. You're like watching, the breath come out of your mouth, and you're like, oh, what a great life this is. What is the one thing that you wish the world knew?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I think it's that the unknown is more embraceable than we think, and especially for women. I'm not a man, so I don't know what it's like for a guy, but so many times I tell people about Alaska and they're like, oh, I couldn't do that. That's their immediate response. And I'm like, but you could. Like, that's the thing. Or I tell them about living in the truck. Oh, I couldn't do that. I'm like, but you could. It requires systems. So this relates to marketing as well. It requires systems, tenacity. And like, you have to be driven by a vision. You have to be like, when I moved to Alaska, I was like, I die or I move to Alaska. And I know that sounds like dramatic, but I was like, this is what's happening. And I didn't have a lot of support at the time, and I didn't care. I was like, it doesn't matter. And it really doesn't when you're like hell or high water, this is what I'm doing. So I feel very fortunate. Like I have a life now that's nomadic, meaning I have to do a lot alone. If I want to go to music, I have to go alone because maybe, I'm traveling through a town or something like that,
Right.
And I've cultivated that ability, and I wish people knew that you can learn that. Like, you just have to go to the bar for the first time alone and be uncomfortable, and everybody's going to stare at you. And you're just like, order the drink. I did this when I was like 22 or something. So uncomfortable. But I'll never forget it. And I learned how to go to things. And even as an introvert, where it's not I'm not one of those like butterfly extroverted people that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Do you have like oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of a go-to recharge space? Is it like, I know you're inside your space, but like, is it books? Is it Netflix? Is it like, what is it for you that sort of allows you just to be like, okay, I'm good?
Yeah, so many good questions. Definitely growing up was books. It was like I'd get in trouble for like reading at the table. I'd stay in the bathroom too long because I didn't want to put the book down, Now I definitely think it's nature. And I think mostly because, I'm sitting at a computer more than I used to, just that kinesthetic side. Also the sauna. So it was really weird. I don't know if it was my time in Alaska. Sauna is a huge part of my life. I like to go on first dates in a sauna because I think it's hilarious. And I like to make people a little uncomfortable.
Right.
And I've met so many like great people in the sauna. You can get information. People are really, caring to share knowledge about a local area. And in Canada, I was just in Alberta and BC, Canada last March. You guys have some great rec centers as well. So, yeah.
So tell me about. Okay, so sauna, like we're talking like wet sauna, dry sauna, doesn't matter sauna.
I'm like a dry sauna girl, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Far out. Okay. What's one from Alberta that you recall? Because I'm curious.
I believe it was Revelstoke because it would have been Revelstoke. And then you get to hear, so I like to get beta, like backcountry beta, right? And so you're sitting in the sauna, like listening to, also that crew of skiers, like they're amazing. They're like talking about their 2,000 meters per day that they do vertical, like skidding up. And so it's just fun to hear stories. And I think, this is a fun conversation because that's another really beautiful link between like wilderness, outdoor travel, and design is it's very story based,
Right.
So I fell in love with the outdoors by sitting around and hearing river travel stories. Like I love stories. And that's really what we do with design is we're trying to distill someone's story into visuals and copy.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. So, like, okay, so I just want, this sounds really weird to go back to sauna again, but
No, I love it.
I only bring it up because I love my sauna. I do a sauna after I work out every day.
Oh, you do? I love it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where because I'm a very introverted and I'll just sit and think about my day and think about, choices made and what happens next and that sort of thing. And I find that there's an incredible space to get in touch with yourself when you're in I don't know, a physical environment that's maybe different than the norm.
100%. If you look at spiritual events, so I spent some time in Bali. You go to a blessing. And maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but to me, it felt like they would have a construct, an environment, some sort of leader, spiritual leader, but often they would physiologically make you uncomfortable. They might toss water in your face and you're, like you can't breathe. You might, go on some track. You might, all sorts of different stuff. And so I do think it helps us get out of like the mind and into the body, like embodiment.
Totally. Yeah. Because I think the idea of being in the moment is kind of foreign to a lot of people right now. And the fine art of Zen, or to exist in this moment in time and not be existing, a minute down the road or 10 years behind you. It's a skill to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think cultivating that in like the moment to moment. And I'm only myself, so I'm not sure, but I suspect creatives, having worked with musicians and other creatives, I do think we're in our heads a lot. So to help get our ideas and creativity and also just live a joyful life, I think, trying to have those moments of embodiment is the word I've been using lately. But, I can just keep going back to embodiment.
Yeah.
But
No, it's really cool. And I was thinking about your Prisma pencil crayons, and because I remember I used to have a pack that had this like stiff hinged lid.
Yeah.
And I remember the smell of like sharpening them, and it's a really interesting I don't know, like connection you created back for me, where I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember that level of creativity. And I wonder if you still do stuff like that today.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for asking. I actually just bought this like pretty cute lap desk because with the truck life, I can't buy a jacket without being like, what am I getting rid of? It's
Right.
honestly pretty tight quarters, and that's part of my like the way I want to live minimally.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I really need more of that off computer time and like no boundaries. And so I rebought the watercolor color pencils where you dip them in the water. And I just set myself up with like kind of what I had in art school. And so I have that now. And then like, the art notebook. And I have been thinking about doing a residency as well. Like, we used to have them in Denali. They have this like backcountry cabin. For some reason, I think they're not running that recently. But so yeah, I guess as I said earlier, like I'm looking to cultivate more of like the artist in me. And like, what does she want to create outside of like, okay, what am I making for money? And because it really, as a designer, I think you can spend all your time on other people, which
Sure
is a beautiful premise. But then I think you got to come back to yourself too. So
absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah. What is the so there's these people out in the world, and they're like we'll call them either rebels in waiting, or they're the rebels who are about to zig when they should have zagged, or they're gonna zag, whatever. They've wily coyoted their way off the cliff, and they're just now looking down, and there's nothing below them. What is your advice to them? Like, what do you say to those people?
Sure. I mean, you can always solve every problem. We just can't always solve it from a place of fear. So I think it's a lot of what we were talking about, like self-managing our state and not pushing fear down, not denying it, but probably letting stuff come through us. That's at least what I've found. There's some challenges, going on in my world this year. And I was like, I like to fixate on the freaking problem. And I'm like, I want to solve it now. Cause most problems I can solve in less than a day, honestly. And so a few of them I couldn't. And I was like, okay, interesting. I have to sit in it, And so I was like, who do I be as I'm moving through that? So that was really interesting for me. And like letting go of all of this up here. And instead of sitting with like, I know I have this, like I've done crazier things,
Oh, interesting.
So I do like to like look back to accomplishments. I am not someone who looks backwards. It's really interesting. I'm very forward facing. So I keep a notebook of, oh yeah, remember that time I drove to Alaska with a trailer that I made and no hitch, and like, you know what I mean? Like just like the ridiculous things, like super ridiculous. And then you're like, cool, I can probably solve this too. So I suspect a lot of people have, really cool success stories. They're just not remembering it as they're falling.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's like a little parachute you can just pull out and be like, pook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think my other one is collaboration, like probably being an external processor. Like I remember having a roommate, she's like, you just talk to yourself. And I'm like, no, you're really important. Like I need you there to talk the ideas through with. And she's like, but I don't say much. And I'm like, but it's still important. So I try to, have those collaboration opportunities, which is important in the like introverted, nomadic, kind of travel lifestyle. So that's something I'm interested in cultivating more of as well. Yeah.
How do you find that? Like, and I mean, not how do you find it? Like, do you love it? But how do you find it? Like, how do you find those collaboration opportunities?
Sure. Overseas, co-work spaces were amazing. It was just very common. I'd meet a couple and we'd vibe and we'd all go to dinner together. A little different coming back to the States. Definitely had a lot of culture shock. Came back post COVID. I'd been out of the country for all of cancel culture and White Claw and all these things I had no idea about. And I'm used to talking through things. So that I had to kind of figure out ways. There's a couple weird ones. A friend of mine is a stylist, and I'm probably not representing it well today, but I worked with her and I'm letting myself be as flamboyant as I want to be, because it elicits reactions. And like the crazier you dress, the more people are going to talk to you, or if you look really nice, it's fascinating. So I've really enjoyed that. I make eye contact, like super simple stuff. Like I talk to people on the street. And I think when we feel lonely, that's a good opportunity to give back, so if you have an outlet for like feeding the homeless, we have a massive homeless, problem in Denver. So if I'm staying in the city, that's something, that has helped me, because instead of feeling like fear about it, I've now have people that I've had really good interactions with, in that kind of environment. So it's kind of shifted that for me. And the sauna, like just weird stuff, but also just like asking people, like if you need help. People are just incredibly kind. I think often we just have to make the first step to initiate. Yeah. And sometimes, I was realizing, I was like, oh yeah, I didn't like talk to anybody for the past 2 days, outside of my meetings or whatever. And so that will happen too. But yeah.
As an introvert, how hard is that for you to just start up a conversation with someone?
I do appreciate that part of me that cultivated that. And it wasn't conscious. It was like more situational. I think at 22, I broke up with my first boyfriend of 3 years, and I'd never been to a bar alone. I never, so I started just making myself go. And what I just asked myself, like, show up. And I'm like, if you want to leave, you can leave. So like, I'm not huge on like parties and DJs, but I remember in Bali, I would be like, just go to the party. And I remember I did the lap and I like immediately left. Like, I just was like, I don't really want to be here, but hey, I went and I knew what it felt like. And I also like know if I show up and let myself be uncomfortable for 10 or 15 minutes, I'm probably going to end up in a really great conversation in the corner with someone, you know? And you also can just stand there, but this is the joy of being a woman. It's like, just like practice standing there. I did startup week in Denver and I, talked to some people and then they left. And so I just kind of like hung out, and it took probably less than 10 minutes for someone to come talk to me. So,
wow.
Yeah. I think when you solo travel, you're quite approachable, actually. I'm sure there's an energetic about it, or, like being approachable is good too. Like friendly.
Sure. Yeah. Oh my God. If you could, this is a new addition to the show. If you could listen to anybody on this show, who would you want to hear from? What would be like a guest that you'd like to hear?
Yeah. Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia. And I probably say his name incorrectly, but he was my first business book, Let My People Go Surfing. It would have been when I was a sophomore in college. This is a very long time ago. Yeah. And I was like, this man has done so many amazing things across so many different industries and not little things. Like he revolutionized how outdoor clothing was packaged, and he started putting on a little hanger instead of all the plastic, and then all the other companies followed. And so I would love to talk to that man. I'm trying to start a podcast so I can invite him while he's still on this earth.
Right on.
Yep.
All right. I will put him on the list. I will reach out, and then we'll have 1 degree of separation.
I love it. I would love that.
Yeah, it'd be outstanding. If you could change one thing, what would it be? In
the world or in my life, or?
Doesn't matter. Could be like, you could be like, don't ever put chocolate chips in mint ice cream. I don't know.
Oh, wow. I didn't pre-think about this question. If I could change one thing.
Yeah, just one thing.
If I could change one thing. I think it's something about accessibility, like giving everyone some sort of level ground of accessibility to like I have a really nice MacBook Pro. Like it's expensive, you know? So just thinking about like accessibility to remote work, because I know that there's so many amazing people that could be bringing amazing things to, you know, the online environment. You know, not that you need a MacBook. I think as a designer, I like it.
I'm talking to you on one right now. I love it.
I know. But yeah, I think something around like, raising up voices, because it's interesting with like social media, influencers, like these things. And I'm not so attracted to like the idea of that. I'm more interested in like, I don't know, like I said, the old guy at the bar who like was at the first Iditarod and ran it. Right. And they had to like shoot moose on the trail and they barely made it. And like, those are the stories I want to hear, you know? So, and I think it's harder to find some of those, but like the gritty, you know, so that's what I get really excited about. And back in the day, me and a friend tried to start, you know, like I can't even remember what format we were trying to do, but we wanted to bring the stories of like rural Alaska to light, because those types of people aren't going to naturally like seek out putting it on certain places. So it's not a very succinct answer, but
well, I love it. I think it's great. And I love the fact that over the course of this conversation, there's been this through line, which is your curiosity to learn and share stories is just, I don't know, it shines through for me. Like it cuts through all this stuff. And I think that as a creative director, running a creative agency, training people how to do stuff, it is such a wonderful gift to have, to recognize the power of story. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you as well. I mean, they let me up. They've shaped my life, you know, like books and then eventually, you know, sitting around campfires and uncontrived stories, you know, the stuff that's not trying to get likes. It's just people connecting. It's like the best thing in the world.
Real shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it. Oh, Adele, this has been so great. Thank you so much for being on the show. This has been just a lovely way to spend time.
Yeah, no, me too. I love it. I appreciate you listening to me ramble.
It was so good. Thank you. Until next time. Thank you so much for listening. I've been your host, Michael Dargie, and this has been the RebelRebel Podcast. It's a podcast for creative rebels and entrepreneurs all over the world. And hey, if you're a rebel or you know a rebel, why don't you head on over to the RebelRebelPodcast.com and fill out our guest request form. We'll get back to you within 24 hours, and maybe we can share your story with the world. Don't forget to like, share, or subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And thanks so much for listening. Until next time.